Hello everyone, Snitch Racer here, and today I will be doing the long-awaited vehicle tier list for Twisted Metal 3. This game has a very bad reputation in regards to its character base and the vehicle selection of the game, and you know what? I'm here to show you that this game needs to be given its rightful chance. It really isn't as bad as people think it is. There is plenty of vehicles that are very useful and very fun. And on top of that, a lot of these vehicles have very unique specials that never appeared in any other games, so it really makes it worth visiting just on that alone. And so let me please show you how this game is simply overhated in regards to its vehicle design. Now, just like the previous list, this will be based on two factors mainly. It'll be a nice balance of how fun the character is, just simply how much I enjoy being them, and how useful they are, how practical they are, how effective they are, kind of thing. And so this list won't just be based on which characters are best, per se. So don't be surprised if there's a character that you find useful far down on this list. I might just not like using them. Maybe they're just not fun. Now, overall, this list will be going from worst to last, starting out with the trash tier and ending with the S tier. Just a reminder that this is just an opinion. I am not the messiah of Twisted Metal 3. I welcome your opinion on your own tier list. I'd absolutely love to see this. Now, let's just dive into this controversial tier list, starting out with that trash tier. Starting out the trash tier will be the second worst version of Mr. Grimm. Yes, this isn't even the worst version of him in my opinion. The worst version of him is in Twisted Metal 4, but we'll get to that when it comes. Just like previous games, the vehicle and the character itself, the driver, does share the same name. Mr. Grimm's out there just to collect souls, and he's after the ultimate one, Calypso's. This version of Grimm does come with that sweet, nice handling, but everything else about this character absolutely sucks. The vehicle itself has no armor, which is normal for a Mr. Grimm character, but the problem is it has next to no speed, so you literally get no benefits from using this character. In regards to vehicle design, because at least in previous games when he was fast, you could use your speed to get away from attacks, when with this version, you literally have nothing you can do to get away from attacks. You just have to deal with it. And for me, it's just not fun. Not at all. Because not only is the vehicle not very good, the special itself absolutely sucks. Instead of being the old classic very good special, it basically feels like giving someone a light bitch slap to the face. Sure, it hurts, but you will recover from it. The special does do an okay amount of damage, maybe like middle of the road for specials in Twisted Metal 3, but I find the hitbox extremely small, which makes the special very difficult to hit. On top of that, I don't even think it does more damage than a power missile, so you're honestly just better off not even using the special, straight up. Because at this point, you might as well just collect a bunch of power missiles and use those. You'll probably have a lot more power missiles than you will have specials on any given map, so. But I want to mention a few of the positives. One of the only positives of this vehicle itself is the design. I think the sidecar design thing with Mr. Grimm with a full-on skull for a head is absolutely badass. And he looks left and right depending on which direction you are steering the vehicle. I do find that quite interesting, but it's not enough to bring the vehicle to any higher rating. One of the strangest things about this vehicle as well is that it has a tendency to flip over almost as much as some of the taller vehicles. It has a high center of gravity, which is very annoying sometimes. All of these factors basically make Mr. Grimm go from a challenge character to just a bad character, taking out all the fun of using him. And so just in general, this character is just not fun to play as. There's no benefits to using them. You might as well just avoid this character. That's why they are at the bottom of the list in the trash tier. Next in the tier list at the top of the trash tier will be Flower Power. It is an old school looking vehicle with a flower design on it, and it is driven by Amber Rose. Amber Rose being the hippie stereotype that just wants to save the planet. Rating Flower Power this low is quite painful because they were my favorite vehicle as a kid in this game, because as a child I thought it was a beetle with flowers on it. As an adult, I can tell it's not a Beetle, but man, I love that car, so it's gonna hurt to rate this low. But I simply have no choice, because honestly, this vehicle absolutely sucks. One of the only good things it has going for it is its good handling, but honestly, that barely matters because it has no armor and basically next to no speed, so the handling barely matters. Because like, who cares if your car handles well if it's going 2 miles per hour, honestly. Just like Mr. Grimm, this Flower Power Hot Rod has the same problem of not being able to get out of danger in basically any way or form. Once you're in danger, you're screwed. Because the armor, honestly, of this vehicle is probably as bad as Mr. Grimm. I haven't tested that, but it really seems like it's just as bad as Grimm. In addition to having just some awful like vehicle stats and all of that, the special's just not very good. It had a lot of potential, but that potential was thrown away by the awful tracking. What this special is when launched out of the front of the vehicle, it relentlessly tracks down an enemy, very similar to Spectre's special. The difference being that it does not go through walls and the tracking is god-awful. But for some reason, the flower little attack will just spin around and do crazy stuff, spaz around, and just completely miss. You can even miss someone point blank with the special. I've done it. Also, the like noise, the little call out that Flower Power does every time she launches her special does drive me up, absolutely up the fucking wall sometimes. And then even if you do make a connection with a hit with this special, it basically feels like lightly brushing someone in the subway by accident. It does nothing, no damage, like it's awful. Which sucks because I'd like to enjoy this character a lot more than I did considering how much nostalgia and love I have for it. Sadly though, it will stay in the trash tier. One thing I can give it though is I actually do enjoy playing as Flower Power occasionally, unlike Mr. Grimm, which is why it's higher up than Flower. Or Mr. Grimm, rather. Now we can move on to the C tier, starting out with Hammerhead. Hammerhead is a super slow, sluggish, off-road type vehicle driven by Granny Dread, who just wants things to be peaceful again. She basically just wants to go back to watching TV, which by the way, her bio actually doesn't even match her ending, but that's a whole different story. Now, this vehicle honestly has quite the reputation as probably being the worst vehicle in the entire game, but I just simply disagree. Like I said earlier, this vehicle is slow and sluggish, but what it does have is decent armor. It's nothing crazy, nothing like Warthog levels, but it does protect you in danger, allowing you to get to a health, which is something you'll be doing a lot in this vehicle because it does have a tendency to flip over, which literally turtles it and makes it so you're just a sitting duck. It can be very frustrating. And actually, speaking of flipping, their special itself will cause them to flip right over more often than not, and that in itself can also be a frustrating experience, but actually I have a lot of fun using their special. What the special does is, just like Darkseid in Twisted Metal Black, it launches you directly towards another vehicle, doing a decent amount of damage. Now, in this game, it doesn't really do too much damage, but that's kind of just a problem overall with all the specials. And so, even though this does look a little ridiculous at times, like the way the car launches looks like almost glitchy, especially when you're up against them, but I simply have a blast using the special. I think it's hilarious the way it flips over and everything. I don't know. It's really fun. Not useful, but fun. Which is why I brought them up to the C tier instead of the trash tier, because I actually find myself playing as that character way more often than the other two that we mentioned earlier. But if you're just looking for some simple fun, or you just want something new, definitely give this character a try. You honestly won't regret it. But for now, it simply has to stay down in the C tier. And the second of only 2 characters in this C tier will be Axel. Just like the previous game, the vehicle and the character itself share the same name. Again, he's attached to the machine. This time it's by choice. Yes, even though this makes no sense at all, he decided to crawl back into the machine and get strapped back in so he can wish to Calypso to be taken out of the machine forever. Yeah, that's right, he's getting back in to get out. I don't understand it, No one understands it. Even the creators of the game probably don't understand it. On top of the story taking a step back, this vehicle takes a massive step back in usefulness and fun. Because now the vehicle is very slow, it has terrible handling, and the ram damage in this game is next to nothing, so he doesn't even have that, unlike 2. So essentially in Twisted Metal 3, Axel just got a massive downgrade in every way. Literally every way possible. The one good thing though, unlike previous characters like Hammerhead and Flower Power, they do have the ability to get out of danger using their special. Because the same special from Twisted Metal 2 does return, the one that sends out that like shock wave that makes everybody fly away. So it is very useful when attacked by multiple enemies, probably the only positive of this character. Unfortunately though, even if the special does have the crowd clearing ability, it really doesn't do too much damage though. Honestly, it's not too much of a concern because the crowd clearing is that useful because of the way the physics work in this game. The special isn't enough for me to enjoy being the character. This is another one where I simply just don't enjoy them at all. I actually get bored, not even frustrated, it's just boring. You drive around at like 2 miles per hour pressing a special that just makes people move out of the way. Like, I don't know, man. This character is the most boring in the entire game to me. The only reason that it's not in the trash tier is the special itself and the fact that the vehicle design does look pretty cool, I guess. But other than that, though, I really don't have too much else to say. Other than that, I do not recommend playing this character whatsoever. And starting out the B tier will be Warthog. Again, just like previous games, it is a army-like Hummer-looking vehicle, this time driven by Captain Roberts, who is a 107-year-old man from way back in the old wars. I actually literally thought he was a zombie until I made my tier list video on the levels, so that's just a whole side note. But let's talk about the vehicle itself. It is very slow, not great handling, but it does have a crap load of armor. In fact, I'm pretty certain it has the most armor in the entire game other than minions. So that does make up for the lack of speed quite a bit. As for the special, the famous Patriot missiles do make a return, very similar to the previous game where it just simply launches 3 fire missiles or homing missiles, depending on the way you look at it, straight, and they track down the enemy. Now, I actually find the tracking of this weapon a little better than the previous 2 games, but it only does like half the damage, which is quite disappointing. Honestly, that's just because of the way this game works though. The specials in this game tend to be on the weak side. And it seems that unfortunately Warthog was one of the ones that suffered the most. But honestly, that's alright though. I don't even mind the lack of power of the special itself because the tracking is honestly very good. Now, one of the negative things of Warthog is it does have a tendency to flip over. Not as bad as some of the other ones, but you will be getting frustrated throughout your playthroughs because of that. But one nice thing is you do have a lot of armor to work with, so when you're flipped over, you're not as trapped as some of the other vehicles. Also, with the high armor stat, you sort of have the ability to just jump in the middle of a battle and not worry too much about, you know, the consequences, which can honestly be quite the blast. All this makes this vehicle quite noob friendly, so he's quite easy to pick up. The only problem is there's nowhere really to go after that. There's no like getting better with this character. The ceiling's very low. Overall, though, this is a quite useful character, though personally I don't always have the most fun playing as them, but I wouldn't say they're the worst. That's why they are here in the B tier. And in the middle of this B tier will be Firestarter. This is an old school, like hot rod looking vehicle driven by Damian Coles. This man just wants to use his flames and fire to destroy Calypso's blimp once and for all. And actually, the vehicle itself, the reason that it's named Firestarter is it is a callback to a song called Firestarter by The Prodigy. This has not been confirmed, but it is well accepted in the Twisted Metal community. The vehicle itself has pretty middle of the road speed, but the handling is absolutely amazing, making this one of my favorite vehicles to drive around in the entire game. This is very key considering that the armor of this vehicle is very weak, so you'll be wanting to get out of, sticky situations as fast and as quick as you can. Also, come on, the vehicle looks super cool. I can't see how you don't think this vehicle looks cool. It's dope. As for the special though, unsurprisingly, it is a flamethrower, basically taken from Thumper in the previous 2 games. The one massive difference though is the flame isn't like one solid beam. If you go side to side, the flame waves around like it's a real flame. Despite the fact that this is much more realistic than 1 and 2, it is way more of a pain in the ass to actually get your aim right. Because if the flame actually waves around too much, it comes back and lights you on fire. That's right, your special attacks you, forcing you to use the freeze attack to use the special effectively. Because if you actually manage to get your full special in with the vehicle standing perfectly still, it is absolutely devastating. Honestly, maybe the most powerful special in the game just based on pure damage. But sadly, for my personal preference, I really don't like when specials force you to use a freeze missile to make them the most effective. It's just not something I really enjoy, because it sort of just makes the whole experience a little more tedious, and I'm just in it for the action, baby. Also, the fact that it is tedious makes it not very noob friendly, so if you're starting out this game for the first time, do not choose this character. I honestly wanted to rate this character way higher than B tier, but the fact that their special backfires on them and is super hard to aim just makes him a little less fun to use, so he'll have to be down here in the B tier. And at the top of this B tier, arguably the most polarizing character of the entire game, we have Roadkill. This is another junk vehicle driven by Marcus Kane. In this rendition of the game, he is saying that aliens from Area 51 are telling him to go kill Calypso. And just like Firestarter, this vehicle has middle of the road speed and some very good handling, but the one thing it has over Firestarter is some decent armor. This all adds up to making this character one of the easiest characters to get out of harm's way with. You'll actually find yourself dying quite a bit less than the other characters in the list, which makes me honestly want to say that this is the most noob-friendly character in the game. The only issue is the special. Just like in Twisted Metal 2, it is again skill-based. It is basically a mortar attack with a bunch of extra damage in a different range that you have to get used to. This special can be very hard to get good at, and especially when you're not new to the game. But once you do get very good at using this special, it is very effective and very satisfying and fun. Also, in true Roadkill fashion, the vehicle itself does look very cool. It has like spikes coming out of the wheel. It's one of the coolest designs in the game. In conclusion, I don't even really have too much more to say about this vehicle. It's just some nice, simple fun. Roadkill, highly recommended, right here at the top of the B tier. Now moving on to the A tier with Outlaw, this time driven by both Jamie and Buzz Roberts, a brother and sister duo who just want to stop the competition forever. These two drive a very cool looking police car that essentially is a Mustang. I mean, look at the design, that's a Mustang. My god, does it look badass with the lights too. There's something about the light design that looks really cool. Bear in mind that this is one of the very first games I played when I was like 8, so that is a factor, but man, it looks cool. On top of that, it is a very good vehicle. It has very good speed, not like the best in the game, but very decent, and some pretty middle of the road handling. Now, middle of the road handling in this game is actually still pretty good, because I think the handling in this game is like 100 billion times better than 2. So even the characters in this game that have like middle of the road to bad handling are still better than any character in Twisted Metal 2. Honestly, I kind of like the slidey, speedy feeling that this character's vehicle kind of gives you. I can't even complain about the handling at all. And it's a good thing you have the speed, because the armor of this vehicle is, I'd say under average. It's not terrible, but it's not great. So you really do need the speed. But let's talk about my favorite part about this vehicle, which is the special. Just like the previous game, the Omni Taser returns. This time, though, it can attack as many people at once as it can grab. Basically, as long as it's in range, it'll grab anyone. You can have like 6 people in the range if that was possible in this game. Because unfortunately with regen, you're never battling more than 5 people at once in the main campaign. But man, is it such a blast grabbing onto that many people, especially when they're all fighting each other, because they'll have a tendency to ram into each other and attack each other. Like, this special can be super OP when used effectively. The one downside I will say about the special is the range is a little short, but that kind of needed to happen in order to balance the ability of, you know, grabbing more than one person at once. So honestly, the short range doesn't really bother me too much at all. This special in general too is just very easy to use, especially when you're new to the game, so this is my #1 most recommended vehicle for anyone starting out the game for the first time. And it doesn't stop there. This character is quite fun to master. You can get very good at this character once you get used to them. Overall, this character though is very fun, extremely useful in large groups, a little less useful one-on-one, but in general, a great character to pick up. That's why they are in the A tier. And before we move on to the A tier, I just want to quickly mention that I do regularly stream on Twitch under the same name of Snitch Racer. I will link that in the description below. I also have a Discord channel that anyone's free to join that is also going to be linked down below. And monkey in the middle for the A tier will be Spectre, this time driven by Lance Wilder. He is a famous actor who has a thing for the ladies. He's a bit of a ladies' man. He has ladies following him everywhere, that kind of stereotype. This is another vehicle that I have quite a lot of nostalgia for, as it's a blue Dodge Viper with white stripes. I mean, how could you not like that as like an 8-year-old kid? Now, this Viper is very fun to drive around. It has medium handling and a huge amount of speed. I believe it's the strongest vehicle in the game. I have a blast just sliding that thing around like it's a drifting game. And in addition to being fun, the speed and the handling is very great for getting out of harm's way. I can go like a full 2 minutes without even being hit if I just play my cards right and dodge the attacks. Even if you do get attacked, I find the armor in this version a lot better than in 1 and 2. As for the special, the Ghost Missile does make its return, now with even better tracking than in Twisted Metal 2. The one negative though, it does not do as much damage as Twisted Metal 2, but it's honestly not too bad, it's still decent. It's even more of a guaranteed hit than in 1 and 2, so you really aren't too, handicapped by the lack of damage. Also, for some reason, I find that this vehicle just basically never flips. Them and Thumper have the least amount of flipping in the game in my experience, which obviously is a positive. In general though, this is just a simple, nice, classic Spectre experience that you're looking for. You will not be disappointed. That is why it is middle of the road in the A tier. Next up at the top of the A tier will be Augur, a construction-looking vehicle with a big drill on the front, driven by Buster Cobb. Buster Cobb is just sick of the Twisted Metal competition and ruining all his construction, so he wants to win it to stop the competition once and for all. Now, Augur is very clearly the slowest vehicle in the game. It won't take you too much playing to realize that. So, unfortunately for some people, he's not very fun to play as, based on that factor alone, but what he lacks in speed, he makes up in literally everything else. He does boast some pretty heavy armor, not as good as Warthog, but it will keep you from dying very quickly. In addition to that, though, what sells this character the most is its special. In a similar vein to Twisted Metal 2, what the special does is grab a vehicle in front of them, and instead of slamming them on the ground over and over, they twist them around like crazy, causing some pretty heavy damage, honestly maybe the second or third most damage of any special in the game. In addition to that great damage, when the attack is active, you can actually rear fire your other weapons, combining it to do an insane amount of damage. Now, this tactic does take a bit more skill, so it can be very hard to get used to, but once you do get used to it, man, it's so satisfying and fun. You'll be addicted, and you'll also be melting through enemies like it's nothing. Side note though, this special does have a tendency to flip you over when launching the vehicles away, but it's not too annoying in my opinion. Of course though, because this special is skill based, I wouldn't necessarily recommend using this character when first starting out, but once you get better at the game, this is one of the best characters to use. In conclusion, this character can be one of the most OP characters in the entire game, and maybe sometimes even the entire series. The only reason it's not up in the S tier is its lack of speed. That can admittedly be very annoying at times. So it's going right at the top of the A tier. And alright, before we reveal who is in the S tier, we're gonna take a bit of a boss break. Boss break? Yes, that's right, I'm gonna take a bit of a break to talk about the one playable boss in this game. I should have mentioned at the beginning of this video, I will not be rating the boss characters on the same scale as the main characters, because eventually I do want to do a proper tier list of just the bosses itself, plus it wouldn't really be fair to rate them on the same scale. And so let's talk about Minion. Once again, he is the classic devil demon type character. This time he's actually the enemy of Calypso and he wants to take him down. And so for the vehicle itself, Minion in Twisted Metal 3 basically feels like the bootleg version of the previous games. It's just not as good in every way possible. This army tank honestly doesn't even have too much more armor than Warthog. The speed is kind of lacking and the handling isn't that great. In addition to that, they basically took out all the power of his special. It's just a mid special at this point. Not a powerful one, mid. Like, genuinely, I think Augur does more damage on his special even without the rear attack. Of course, just like previous games, what the special does is launch 3 homing-like missiles and a freeze missile. You would think the freeze missile would make this attack a lot better. Well, the only problem is that freeze missile misses like 80% of the time. I actually think it's because it launches too high in the vehicle and just goes right over their head or something. I don't know, I always miss though. Also, in addition to all the problems with the special, this vehicle flips over just as much as Sweet Tooth, I'd say, which is an absolute royal pain in the ass and honestly even makes me rage quit. In conclusion though, just overall, this character doesn't even really feel like a boss character. The only reason that he does is because of his sheer size. So sadly, he's going right at the bottom of the C tier on the boss scale. And as for Primeval and Darkside, well, I honestly got to admit, I just don't understand how to use the GameShark codes in the emulators, so I just couldn't get it working. Hopefully I can figure it out for when I do the tier list video of the bosses though. Future Snitch here. Before we talk about the S tier, some key eyes may have noticed something. I completely forgot to talk about Sweet Tooth. Now, I know forgetting about the most famous character in the entire franchise is a massive mistake, but that's honestly just how bad he is. I barely ever play as him because to me he's the most unenjoyable character in the entire first 3 games. The issue being the physics are completely broken. He basically flips over with any collision from any other vehicle or any other wall or anything like that. Honestly, he even flips over when he turns too hard. Also, I'm not really a fan of his special myself. That might be just a personal preference as I don't know, I just can't aim it very well. In general, he's just unbearable to use, so I'm not going to say too much about him other than the fact that he's going in the super mega ultra trash tier. You guys enjoy the S tier though. I got to finish editing this video. And now on to the S tier. Now these 2 vehicles in the S tier are in a league of their own. They are just a lot better than the other vehicles in the game. This S tier though will start out with Club Kid. This is an old school retro Mini Cooper with smiley faces all over the outside of the vehicle. Just like a lot of other characters, this vehicle shares its name with the driver. The name of the driver is also Club Kid. This young chap just wants something simple. He wants to party all night long. Basically filling out the, party guy, club guy stereotype of the 90s. This badass looking Mini, by no one's surprise, has very little armor, it's not very fast, and it doesn't have good handling, making it so you will die quite easily once you start taking damage. Now, this is where the special comes in. When used, the special drops a little tornado thing behind you, grabbing anyone that's nearby, sort of similar to Twister, but you don't have the special on top of you. This can make it super effective when trying to get away from enemies. If anyone's chasing you, if you shoot your little special out, they're gonna be gone, because the sheer grabbing power of that special is insane. Like, if you go anywhere near that thing, you are stuck unless you know, pull off a sheer miracle. Not only does this special do damage at the end, it also can grab multiple enemies at once, which is where you will do most of the damage during this special, because as it's grabbing multiple enemies, they're swinging around like crazy and ramming into each other, causing ram damage on each other. Also, they do have a tendency to just start spamming attacks for no reason once they're trapped in that, so you can absolutely decimate multiple enemies at once. And on top of that, you can actually just use the rear fire ability to rear fire a bunch of napalms and mortars into them. It's insane how overpowered this special is. In fact, it's a little too overpowered. Like, in a multiplayer setting, this vehicle would not be very fun to play against, but thankfully this list is based on the single player tournament alone. Honestly, the only reason that this character is number 2 and not number 1 is its lack of armor and speed. Despite the fact that the special is super overpowered, sometimes you'll get, like, you know, way ahead in the tournament and just lose 3 lives, just like that. So that's what makes it at number 2 and not number 1. Overall, though, it is obviously still up here in the S tier, one of the best characters in the game, one of the best characters in the series. And here at number 1 is Thumper. And that's right, just like in Twisted Metal 2, the number 1 character I chose is not a surprise by anyone who plays this game. The Pink Lowrider makes its return, once again driven by Bruce Cochran, a South Central gangster stereotype who just wants to kick it with his homies. Now, the vehicle itself is a lot better than Club Kid was. It has better handling, better armor, and better speed. All of those stats aren't that high, but they are very decent, making this character very easy to pick up and quite fun to play as and go back to. And just like I mentioned with Outlaw, this character just simply does not flip over at all, really, unless, you know, forced to, so that is absolutely beautiful in this game. Now, on top of having some pretty decent stats, just like Club Kid, the special of Thumper is absolutely overpowered. Instead of a flamethrower this time, it launches sound waves out of the front of the vehicle, doing a very good amount of damage similar to Augur's attack. But what it also does is launch people absolutely flying, which is hilariously overpowered in a game where the vehicles themselves can actually be turtled and have to wait a few seconds to get up. You can abuse the crap out of the vehicles in this game. And it's even better against the bosses. Honestly, once you get very good at this game, the bosses are a complete cakewalk when you're going with Thumper, unless you of course get frozen. Also, one of the best parts of this special is it doesn't take a lot of skill or experience to use, unlike Club Kid special at times, so anybody can pick up this special or this character and use the special very effectively. And then once you start getting used to the game and you master the special, you can be an absolute menace on the freaking battlefield. And everything positive about this vehicle makes it a speedrunner's dream. If you look at all the top speedruns of this game, it's like 95% Thumper. Even all my best speedruns are with Thumper. I just love this freaking character. Honestly, just in general, I like the idea of this special a lot more than what they gave him for 1 and 2, because the Soundwave thing is more unique to his character. I mean, they even brought back a sort of similar version of it in the Twisted Metal Small Brawl, so I think it's a great idea. Overall, though, this character is simply the most fun to beat and the most effective at the same time, so there's nowhere else but number 1 that this character belongs. And that's pretty much gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you did, and remember that this is just my opinion. I would love to know yours in the comments. I have a lot of fun reading tier lists, so please let me know your own opinion. But anyways, I hope everyone has a great time, and remember to tune in next time when I brew my bitter ball sack.